Hey, how you doing? My name is Ken Kinter, and I'm an assistant professor at Rutgers University. And the purpose of this presentation is to create the worst presentation ever. Oh, wait a minute. In a really bad presentation, I would have no contact information or any information about me at all, so you would have no way of knowing. So this is actually the proper title slide. Oh, well, let's fix that. So here you go. Here's my information about who I am, as well as an email address so that you can reach me. The line at the bottom is where the rest of our videos are. We have a series of videos about mental health and trauma and addictions and things like that. All right, so now that we got that fixed, let's get rolling. So the objectives for this training, oh, wait a minute, this is the worst training ever. So we will have no objectives. Instead, we're going to talk about my dog and my cat endlessly. All right, let's not do that. That also has the added advantage. Talking about irrelevant topics also makes the presentation longer, which people really, really like. Okay, so for the real objective of this, it's to illustrate many common mistakes made by presenters, both beginners and veterans. Just because you've been doing this for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it better. Could be you're just making the same old mistakes over and over again. However, it's easy for new people to make a lot of these mistakes as well. All of these mistakes that you are seeing, I have either done or witnessed myself. I'm not going to tell you which ones I've done, but it's maybe all of them. So there's many different dimensions to making a bad presentation, any one of which is sufficient, but it really helps if you have a bunch of these things working for you at one time. So we're going to talk about the physical setting. We're going to talk about the actual content that you're discussing, the PowerPoint issues, and we'll touch on Zoom and all that kind of stuff as well as we go. And then also issues with just being a presenter itself and how you can sabotage your own case. Being an effective presenter isn't always about how much you know. It's about how well you're able to communicate what you know. You can actually be a whole lot less more knowledgeable, but still get your points across, or be extremely knowledgeable and present very poorly. And you can watch experts on the news if you don't believe me. Some of them look like complete buffoons, even though they are total subject area masters. So let's start out with the physical setting. It's very important that your room be either too hot or too cold. And you see a couple of my friends, the heat miser and the snow miser here. Uncomfortable chairs are really, really important. And here you see a restraint chair from the psych hospital in the 1700s. Built-in commode, very nice. You also want to have terrible acoustics so that people can't hear you. I always assume that people in the group have some sort of visual or auditory impairment, so you can go a little over the top and try to catch everybody. Time of day is also really important. If you catch people first thing in the morning, they may not be completely ready for a presentation. Sometimes I train night shifters right when they get off a shift. So if you've done 8 hours overnight, how much do you want to see this face and hear this voice in the morning? So we try to avoid that as much as possible. So the presentation, first of all, if it's too technical and way too in the weeds, people are not going to like it. If it doesn't apply to them, if it doesn't have anything to do with their job, if they can't use this, then it's really just an exercise in how nice they are, whether they're paying attention to you at all. There's no other reason for them to be there except professional courtesy. Flow is very important. How do you get from where you've started to where you've ended? Is there a clear path there, or does it just wander around? I've been warned by presenters about inside jokes. If I'm making humor about things and the audience doesn't get it, well, you see the result here at the bottom. Time is a really important issue. Stick to time, start on time, finish on time, take breaks so people can recover, stop from time to time so people can ask questions. You want to have as much interaction as possible. Or if you really want to do a bad presentation, go straight through, run long, talk about irrelevant stuff, and don't allow any interaction with anybody or any questions. They'll love that. PowerPoint issues. PowerPoint is a blessing and a curse. Um, I think the rule with PowerPoint is keep it simple. I think we get in a lot of trouble by overdoing too many words on a slide, or as someone was kind enough to put it to me, they're not cue cards. Your notes should be your notes. If you're making a handout for your participants, then make a handout. Don't double up and have the handout as the slides. What happens is, and you just did this, when the slide comes up, your audience reads the slides, and then everything you say just turned into womp, 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 womp until they're done reading and they check back in again. So the more words you have, the longer that period of checkout on each slide. There is a colleague of mine who literally just does images. She just does images as the slides, trying to make the images part of how she's communicating her point. For example, a lot of pictures of trains, the idea of the different parts of the presentation being stops on the train. Then she made a handout for the clients that had their information on it. Fonts should be consistent. A few things look less professional than a PowerPoint that you've obviously quilted together from many other things that have fonts of different sizes, shapes, and types. Too much content, if we talked about having no images in there whatsoever. In fact, let's just borrow an example. This is some information from my dissertation, but I've actually seen slides that look like this, both in terms of fonts, both in terms of color, readability. This is pretty close to an actual example of something I saw in a professional training, and it's a train wreck. Um, Now let's move on to the speaker. How dynamic is your speaker? I've seen people that have been able to hold a room at full attention for a whole day, and I've seen other people that lost the room in the first 5 minutes, and some of it is how you speak. So, probably the biggest one is reading your slides. And I would say this is a rookie move, but I see lots of veterans do it too. If you don't know what's on your slides, you shouldn't have to look at your slides. You should just glance at your slide to make sure the right one is up, and then everything else should be by rote. Unless you have something that you're actually pointing out. You have a graph, there's some data on there. Eye contact with the audience at all times. Speak clearly. This is not my normal speaking voice. This is my presenter voice. This is not my therapy voice. It's different. I'm assuming that people will not hear as well. I'm trying to speak more slowly. Yes, for Northeast, this is slow. More clearly and a little louder than I would normally speak. Never turn your back to the crowd. Speed is an issue. Those of us from this part of the country speak very quickly, and we can lose people from the Midwest and South. I've also seen trainings from people in the Midwest and the South where it's the Bueller situation, right? Another challenge is if you have not rehearsed your presentation very much, a lot of stuttering and stammering occurs. Ers, us, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that is from you thinking on the fly and trying to think of what you're going to say next. And you're buying a couple seconds of time. If you've rehearsed the talk, you don't have that. And there's less of that. You're going to hear me do it. I'm going to do the ers, and ahs. Far less because this is my third round doing this. And I've thought about what I'm going to say next. Otherwise, I'd be doing a lot more. You don't want to come across as arrogant. You're not, I mean, you're an expert in the area that you're talking about, but last thing you want to do is for your audience to, you don't want to be superior to your audience anyway. That turns people off and they will not pay attention. And of course, you don't want it to be boring. And this is part of where the interaction comes in. I like to pretend I'm having a conversation with you live in real time right here, regardless of when you're seeing this. That's my attitude. I kind of treat this as my late night talk show kind of thing. So, to summarize a few of these things, if you wanted to look real fast, here's your checklist to prevent training suckage. You've got the issues of the room, the size of the room, the temperature of the room, the chairs, what time of day. You've got the elements of the presentation. Is it at the right level? Is it pertinent to your audience? Is there a flow? Being good as far as time goes. Taking breaks, having interaction, no inside jokes. The PowerPoint. Is the PowerPoint simple, neat, clean, not too many words, a lot of images, and easy on the eye? Simple and easy on the eye. From the speaker perspective, yes, don't read slides. Don't turn your back. Keep your volume up, keep your voice clear, careful with the repetitive speech. For example, I went to a presentation where a guy said, "Does that make sense?" about 21 times in the morning. I was counting. It means I'm not watching or listening to his presentation. I'm dealing with this repetitive speech pattern. Another repetitive speech pattern to watch is what they call, I guess it's uptalk or upspeak, where everything you say kind of trends up at the end, almost as if it were a question. A lot of people don't notice this. A lot of people find it really annoying. So, something to think about. If you practice, you should have done the presentation in real time at least twice before you're actually doing it for a recording or before you do it in person. So that way you don't have the ums, the ers, and the uhs, which means you're making decisions on the fly. You really don't want to do that. And think about your presentation as edutainment. You are trying to educate and you are also trying to entertain at the same time. That helps keep people's attention. A couple other pieces to bring up that we didn't talk about, and one of those is Zoom. When you are doing a presentation on Zoom, how do you look? What does your background look like? People notice a lot of stuff in your background. Anything that's there, people will notice because their attention wanders and they're looking around. For example, you can see my bookcase in the back. I've gotten a lot of comments and even a little criticism about my book selection in the back because people have noticed it. Another element about Zoom, make sure you have everything organized as far as your tech so you can seamlessly go from videos to whatever you're doing, one thing to another. You do not want to have all of these things come up, mistakes in real time. Number two, how to deal with hecklers. You may get people that decide to heckle you or come at you in terms of questioning your data, and we'll talk about that with references in a little bit. You don't want to get into it with someone while you're doing a presentation. You have a certain amount of time and something to do. So you can always do agree to disagree or talk with someone after the training is over to see what they're disagreeing about. But it's also really good if your references are really tight. So instead of you getting into them, you have where you got this information from and they can take it up there. The other thing I've noticed is that when you do a presentation live, very often the first person who will comment is actually trying to promote themselves or their company. So they may not really ask a question. They may spend more time introducing themselves and talking about how fabulous they are. And that's okay. You let them go and you keep it moving. It's a kind of a necessary evil. So, as we mentioned before, have everything you do referenced because someone will call you out on it. And that's good. That's fair. But if you have a place to refer that person directly, you've got it covered. Otherwise, it runs the risk of turning into an argument. And that's not something that you're looking for. So, for this particular presentation, this was the product of 35 years of giving and receiving trainings, including from some of the best trainers that I've ever seen, as well as other people who were really good at what they did, but not necessarily so good at presentations. But normally here, you got to have all your APA or whatever, profession citations all lined up. Here's your facts. Here's where this came from. Otherwise, you just made this up. That's basically what the takeaway point is for your presenters, and that's not necessarily such good form. So again, just to repeat in closing, this is our website. This is where all of our information comes from. It may have been how you got to this training. If not, you have this citation at the bottom, the sites.rutgers.edu site. This is where all of our information is. So as always, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your attention. Have a good one, and we'll catch you next time.